Good afternoon and welcome to our first afternoon episode of Clown World Network. It's going to be a great day today. I've rarely had the opportunity to get in the studio in the middle of the day, but we are working with my travel schedule. As many of you know, I also have an office in Texas where my kids are, and I'm traveling this evening, so it would have put a crimp on the time that we could actually have done the show today. So we hope that you can catch us in this afternoon, and it's really cool is that we're going to be able to see the different responses for people who are actually available in the daytime as opposed to the later hours. Period. Because of some of the differences in the scheduling, what happens is that I get to the point where I can't do like a consistent time frame at this point. We're still trying to figure out where we're going to fit in our time slot. And as most of you know, when you have a busy life, it's always about trying to work in the best possible things that you can do at the best possible times. And when you own a business, you kind of have to deal with the business first and do your hobbies or other things second. It's going to be a great show, though. I've got some really good content today. We've really gleaned the internet. We've scrubbed for great stories and gotten some good images up. And so I really look forward to bringing you this episode of Clown World Network. Remember to like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment down below to make sure that we are getting our algorithms and you're getting the best possible content. Also make sure that you're either subscribing and following so that you can be aware of when new shows are coming out. So here we go, Clown World Network 2.0 coming at you live in the middle of the day. On Sunday, organizers of the Recall Gavin Newsom campaign announced that they have actually accumulated enough signatures to trigger a special election later this year. Only 1,495,790 signatures were required, but they've gathered 1.95 million signatures with still 10 days to go before the March 17th deadline. That's pretty awesome. So when you look at what they're trying to collect and what they need to collect, they've actually surpassed their goal, and they're really focused on hitting that 2 million mark prior to getting into the recall. So I love how exciting that they have made this. This is like a big deal there, and lets you listen to the excitement in their voices as they tell you that they made the numbers.
What we're doing here today is monumental and historical. We'd like to announce, as of today, we have 1,950,000 signatures. That is more than enough to be able to have this initiative qualified for a special election later this year, to let the people finally decide who and what is going to happen with the fate and the future of California Governor Gavin Newsom.
We are still setting our sights on getting an additional number of signatures in order to bridge that 2 million mark.
Yeah.
And we're excited and hopeful that we're going to have that in the time that we have left.
And we have until March 17th, and that's St. Patrick's Day. But we want to get this done immediately. We want to get this done in the next couple of days because we don't want to have any shenanigans. We don't want the politicians to go ahead and derail the movement that the people have created for so many months now.
Trigger on too, by the way. When you listen to that video, the guys are like, they're excited about this. I mean, they have put a lot of energy and a lot of time. They've gone out, they've done signatures, a signature gathering. They've wrapped their trailers. They have done the real deal on getting this thing taken care of. They are committed, convicted, and determined to get Gavin Newsom out of office, which is freaking awesome. Even though they've raised more than enough to qualify, they're still trying to hit a goal. And it's more of a goal for milestone movements than anything else. They're really wanting to hit that 2 million mark before the deadline. The people finally get to decide who and what is going to happen with the fate of their future in California. It's been a long time coming, and California's kind of been under, for lack of a better word, dictatorship for all of these crazy policies. But voters will be asked later this year whether Newsom should be removed from office. They should also be asked who should replace him if the majority of respondents say he should be removed. So they're getting a choice. Can you imagine having a choice like this? This is freaking huge. California has been a Democratic stronghold for many, many, many years, and Democratic policies in California have helped destroy the California lifestyle. I don't know how many times we've heard that Kamala Harris said that things in California should be touted as a model for the U.S. A model for the U.S. I was dumbfounded when she made that statement. I don't know what part of that's supposed to be a model. High gas prices, high rent prices, low quality of living, homeless rates, street drug use, street defecations, mass exoduses out of California. What part of that is the model for the U.S.? And what scares me is that she is that out of touch with what's going on in California that they honestly believe that it should be a model for the rest of the United States. Getting Gavin Newsom out will send a message. And if we have any say in it, and there's a lot of good Republican leaders that are coming up through the ranks in California, the idea of getting Gavin out of office not only is going to empower the people, but I think it's going to empower the future leaders of tomorrow. Because when you compete against people like the Pelosi's and the Newsoms and all those entrenched politicians that have been in office for 50 years, the battle is uphill. It's always an uphill. You're dealing with an incumbent, somebody who has an endless amount of funneled money from big corporations, big businesses, and laundered through the American taxpayers. You have all of these people who are rubbing each other's backs trying to make sure that certain people stay in office. I would love to see Gavin Newsom go. That would just be like the tip of the iceberg. But the real movement is going to be replacing leadership with people more conservative or like-minded to the conservative values. Now, for those of you who don't really understand like what triggered a lot of this was during COVID, they have the most draconian like requirements for social distancing and businesses not being able to open. But yet, in the same breath that Gavin Newsom talked about how people should avoid gatherings at Thanksgiving, he had a birthday party for a friend at a restaurant. Restaurants that were not supposed to be serving indoors when they were saying eat outdoors, do your hair outdoors, do everything outdoors. He and a group of people not only didn't social distance, but they also went in there with no mask, and they went against everything that he said. And his apology was not genuine. I have had nothing good to say about Gavin Newsom. I am so glad this is happening, and I'm really excited for the Recall Gavin Newsom 2020 group that's out there. I wish them all the best, and will give them continued support as they go through this endeavor. That's just an awesome deal. For those of you in California, I hope you are paying attention, and you will do the right thing in getting Gavin out of office. But speaking about things that have happened in craziness, so January 6th, during the Trump rally in Washington, D.C., for those of you who've been sleeping under a rock, there was an insurrection of the Capitol. Again, using things in air quotes because it's really how they want to twist it. But our buddy, Jacob Chansley is known as the Horned Shaman, was seen roaming around the Hall of Congress on January 6th. He has been locked up in jail since his arrest. Now, firsthand, and I know that Jacob would never, and never has caused any violence at demonstrations, he listened to officers. He was led in the building by Capitol Hill police. He actually went in and did a prayer in the chambers. It's really sad that they have painted this guy as like the poster child of the insurrection, because he's a very unique individual. Jacob is a very unique individual. I've had a chance to rally with him at the exploited children rallies. We're trying to save the children. I've had a chance to rally with him at Trump rallies. I've had a chance to rally with him at Stop the Steal rallies. I had a chance to be with him and listen to the man speak. And he is well educated and well informed. He does subscribe to the Q philosophy, and he did, which is why he's known as the Q-Shaman. But he did the dress and the outfit as a way to bring impact and awareness to the message he was delivering. He at no time claimed to be anything more than a man on a mission. He at no time has ever spoken for violence. At no time has he ever tried to get people riled up to violence. In fact, just the opposite. He's talked about writing your congressional leaders, making phone calls, emailing them, showing up on their doorsteps, make your voice heard, go to protests. And we have done, 15, 18, 20 rallies with Jacob this year. He's a really, really good guy. And I really hate the way the media has portrayed him. I've kept a little quiet on this because it's so difficult to see the media just destroy this guy. But let's just go one step further. Chansley's attorney, Al Watkins, in a hearing in Washington, D.C., was attempting to free Jacob from jail before his trial on bail, okay? Now, bail is something that they allow murderers, rapists, domestic violence, armed robbers to get. There's people out on bail that have murdered somebody and are going through trial to be convicted, right? Because in our country, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So Jacob Chansley's lawyer said, hey, we want to put him out on bail. He's got no history of violence. He's got no criminal history. We think it would be an asset to have him out and allow him the chance to formulate his defense. The prosecutor comes back and wants denial of the bail. And what did they deny the bail on? This is what he said. U.S. Attorney Kimberly Paschal argued that Chansley should not be released because he might talk about election fraud once he's released. Now, did you hear what I just said? He might talk about election fraud. So what you're telling me is you don't want him to be released in jail on a provisional bail because he might exercise his First Amendment right to freedom of speech to talk about an election he doesn't agree with. Right or wrong, is that not like saying, well, they're not saying he may flee. They're not saying he's not going to show up for his court date. They didn't say he's harmful to the community. They said specifically, word for word, he might talk about election fraud once he is released. And I wanted to read that because I wanted to make sure I got it perfectly right there. Are you kidding me? So you watch any bail hearings and you hear about crimes that are committed by people who are out on bail. What were they committed? What were they doing on bail in the first place? They committed murder. They committed armed robbery. They committed domestic violence. And they're worried about Jacob Chansley, the horned Q-Shaman, because he might exercise his First Amendment rights to continue to talk about fraud, election fraud. What they're basically saying, and I hope this message is very clear, I'm going to speak really slowly. I hope this message is very clear, is that you can have a voice as long as your voice does not dissent from the opinions that they want you to have. They want you to have a voice that agrees with them, and if you dissent from that or you have a differing opinion, this is how they're going to keep you in jail. He wasn't convicted, he wasn't picked up and charged with anything other than going into this Capitol. But they've painted him as the poster boy because he's the easy target. Because of his outfit, because of how many rallies he's done, they make him an easy target. Jacob doesn't have any associations. They haven't tried to tie him into any hate groups. They haven't tried to get him for any destruction. They haven't actually got him for leading the insurrection, although they would like him to be the leader. There was thousands of people that entered the Capitol. And Jacob Chansley, because he's the most recognizable, he stands out the most, and he has a big voice, they've locked up, and they're trying to really just hit him with this whole 10-year thing. But they don't want him out on bail because they're concerned that he might talk about election fraud. Holy crap. If this doesn't make you scared, then nothing will. If censoring you on Twitter, Facebook, or watching all these people get censored, including the President of the United States, doesn't wake you up, then you need to really pay attention to the fact that this statement from this U.S. attorney said, please deny bail to Jacob Chansley because he might talk about election fraud. Are you not just totally... it's crazy. But I really wanted to give Jacob a chance to talk in his own words. So we're going to play this video from him describing his role in the January 6 events.
Well, I sang a song, and that's a part of shamanism. It's about creating positive vibrations in a sacred chamber. I also stop people from stealing and vandalizing that sacred space, the Senate. Okay, I actually stopped somebody from stealing muffins out of the break room. I also said a prayer in that sacred chamber because it was my intention to bring divinity and to bring God back into the Senate.
How crazy is that? He talked about even keeping people from stealing the muffins. Now, does this sound like a guy that is leading an insurrection, that is Jacob Chansley, and that is who he is all the time. That's not a magic, like I'm in front of the camera kind of guy. That is who he is. He's passionate. He's genuine. He is a real deal person. He is so convicted by his beliefs that he has followed this trail of being involved. He's been to Black Lives Matter rallies to try to keep the peace and offer differing opinions and speak, clearly about things. He goes to pro-police rallies. He's been to Trump rallies. Like I said, I've met this guy at 18 to 20 different rallies. And in each interaction, I have been met with a guy who is very well articulated, very well educated, almost too smart for his own good, and a little bit eccentric. And it's probably that eccentric part that they're really capitalizing on, because he wore all of that, the horns and that. But he's been doing that for years. It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. And I really feel for you, Jacob. I look forward to talking to you when this all gets resolved. I really think you're getting the bum end of this thing, like you're getting the raw end of this deal. And I can't believe that we're censoring people and keeping people from bail for fear of them executing their First Amendment rights. I guess if we're all quiet and we put our head down and we do what we're told and do what we say and let the government pay our bills, I guess we're going to be happy, right? Not me. I'm sorry. But let's go back to a time and a place. Let's take a step back to when we had a real president, and a press secretary that could kind of hold her own. She actually had to give answers to the sharks in the press, was questioned and constantly under ridicule. I mean, do you remember Kayleigh McEnany? She was awesome, right? It seems like so long ago that we had a real press secretary, and it's only been like a month and a half. Kayleigh, if you can hear me, we want you back. We appreciate you being on Fox News. We get to hear your voice again. But I used to love her press conferences because the press gave her no slack. They gave her no opportunity. They gave her no reprieve. They just went after her. After all we've had to deal with in Biden's administration, it's just felt like a long time since we had somebody who could actually answer things for us. I guess, she had, Kayleigh McEnany had a few things to say over the weekend about the recent performances of Jen, and I'm always going to screw this name up, but it's Psaki. The P is silent. It's Jen Psaki and her circle backs from the press.
I've said before, and I mean it, I wish Jen Psaki all the best. It's a very hard job. But that being said, we took great pains in our administration to do hours and hours and hours of research beforehand, days sometimes, calling Secretary Azar firsthand, calling Carrie Kupak over at the Justice Department to get answers. And the great thing about being in the Trump White House was I always knew where my boss stood. Unlike other press secretaries that maybe didn't have walk-in privileges to the Oval, I could walk in at any time. I always knew where he stood. Before every press conference, I would go in with a list of items that I thought the press would ask and go through one by one. I always knew where his head was at, so I didn't have to do a ton of circling back because President Trump gave a lot of access to me.
See, the thing I liked about Kayleigh is, if you remember, she used to get ridiculed for her big binders. She used to carry this big binder and it was all tabulated. What she said right there in that little clip was that she would do hours and hours of research, and it showed. When she was standing on that podium, she owned the podium. She owned the media. And sometimes the press corps would try to throw things at her. She owned them over and over again. But her key statement is that she always knew where her boss stood. She had privileges to walk into the Oval. That's a cool statement, basically saying that the administration was being very transparent, was giving access to her to be able to answer the press, which in turn gives transparency and access to the president through her, right? She's a vehicle. So basically, she would say that she's prepared. The other thing Kayleigh said was that transparency is what Joe offered, and Joe Biden vowed transparency. For now, he set a 100-year record of not going to the podium. Let's be honest. He's had more attacks on Syria than press conferences, and you're going to love this clip. So we have a presidency that won't talk to the American people. We have a press secretary who can't answer many questions. So where are we at right now compared to what we had in the previous administration? Yep, that's Jen Psaki. She has been a horrible example of what an empowered press secretary should be. It is obvious she doesn't know or take the time to prepare herself for the press. Now here's the even better part. Jen and the Biden administration require the press to submit their questions before the press conference. Because of all of the issues and the criticism that she's taken, they're required to write up their comments, submit them to her. Doesn't that give her and her team a chance to be prepared for that and to know what the questions are? But she always looks like she's in shock when they answer her questions. It's just absolutely crazy. Representative Matt Gaetz weighed in on this whole deal.
Joe Biden's had more nap time than he's had questions from reporters. And you're right, while the Middle Kingdom grows more ambitious in their goals, we are still toiling away in the Middle East. Joe Biden has had more attacks on Syria than he's had press conferences. And so you have to ask to the progressive voters, is this really what you expected? Is this what you wanted? A warmonger president like Joe Biden when Donald Trump did so much to bring peace to the world and to actually confront the real threat, China, not to be trying to build democracies out of blood and sand and Arab militias in some desert far away.
Wow. I love that line. I used it already, but more attacks on Syria than press conferences, more nap times than questions from the press. That's the reality. When have you seen our president, our selected president, really talk to the people? I mean, it's like a big deal that he's going to the podium tomorrow or Thursday to actually talk to the American people since the first time since he's been elected. Yeah, he's had little clips with the media, but he hasn't really become genuine and authentic with the American people. In fact, he's not doing any talking at all. And I don't know if it's because he can't get the speeches out right and his handlers are kind of worried, but you've got Kamala Harris handling foreign affairs with foreign dignitaries. You've got a press secretary who gets questions handed to her that can't answer them. And you have a president that hasn't gone to the podium to talk to the people. But yet, we're still supposed to believe that 81 million people voted for this man. Do you really have a question in your mind, or are you this being that blind? Because I don't have any question that there is no way in hell that a man of his stature, a man of his career, and a man of his temperament, with regards to how he interacts with people, could never pull 81 million votes. I just want to be proven wrong if I'm wrong, but we, of course, have to deal with all of the roadblocks for that. Well, with Biden choosing to run things his way, so untransparently, not really involved, not really engaged, it should be the press secretary's job to be the go-to person for everyone else. You know, now that the Orange Man Bad is out of office, we've got Orange Man Bad now with Jen Psaki. She is horrible. If you've listened to her press conference, she says, The very first one, I had to turn it off because it was horrible. And I like to listen to these things because it helps us gain content and understanding of the direction. Who has those answers for us if Jen doesn't? Because we want answers as American people. We want somebody to talk to. Someone's going to give us a fill-in. The press continues to give her and the administration passes. We need hard-hitting press in there asking the questions. She may not answer them, but we need that requirement because they put Kayleigh under the microscope and under the gun day in and day out for everything that happened with Trump, everything that happened in the administration, everything that happened with COVID, and she always had her answer. They made fun of her for being over-prepared, having binders. But man, one thing you got with Kayleigh was action, right? So let's see this little bit of a talk about Jen Psaki's Circle Back.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I often note I'm going to circle back. I hate to disappoint conservative Twitter, but I am going to circle back on a number of things, as we often do directly. I'll circle back, circle back. I hate to disappoint you. Circle back, that's an excellent question. Circle back, I hate to disappoint you, but we will venture to circle back with all of you.
Think cocaine or not? What do you think?
This is such a good question. I have not had the opportunity to dig into that. I'll circle back.
It was a massive dump. To this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from.
I'm not aware of anything, but we'll circle back.
This uncircumcised Philistine, who does he think he is?
As a mom myself, I want to know all the details. I have to circle back.
Come on, man. You know what I mean?
I will venture to get you an answer on that, and maybe we can talk about it, and you'll circle back. I will have to circle back on that one. But we'll circle back. But I will have to circle back with you. Let me give you a very specific example. I'll circle back. I hate to disappoint you. Circle back. That's an excellent question. Circle back. I hate to disappoint you, but we will venture to circle back.
This president knew back in January. Why didn't he tell us? Why did he warn
There are
us?
a number of ways to combat misinformation. One of them is circle back.
You told us that Trump was invincible and Hillary was in the prison, right?
I don't really have any predictions for you on that. I can circle back.
She has made a total career at this point as the White House press secretary of not answering questions. One of the best statements that I saw, and they kind of used it in that video, was in order to combat disinformation or misinformation, I'm going to have to circle back. So instead of giving an answer, instead of being prepared, instead of coming to the podium ready to be like that person that has answers, she has become the circle back girl. And there's so many different songs, like the one I wanted to use was Ain't Your Holler Back Girl. She could be like, I am your circle back girl or something stupid, you know? Yes, I am in the dork, and I know it. So other than, knowing that Joe Biden has taking a lot of naps and having some afternoon Mario Kart and letting Kamala run the office, it's really hard for us to know what the administration's up to because we're not given transparency. We're not giving free rein to actually interrogate the press secretary, which is kind of what they're there for. And she can't really answer anything. He's already signed more executive orders than I care to count. I mean, he went on a tangent signing executive orders. So you'd think he'd be able to speak out and have more transparency when people want to question about his executive orders. But there's been several press conferences already with Jen that she has not even addressed it, or she's like, I haven't spoken to Joe about that. How many times has she said, I haven't really spoken to the administration, I haven't spoken to the president, I haven't spoken to the vice president? Isn't the job of the press secretary to speak to these people and to get us the information or the press the information? If you really wanted Americans to know what you're doing, you would have a press secretary that was prepared. Again, one of the other things that I loved about Kayleigh, and she calling out Jen was freaking awesome. But we all know that Joe's not really running a White House. He's kind of running a circus as the head clown in Washington. With some of the failures of answering some of the simple questions for a press that is handcuffed, charging the press for COVID testing, it should be known that there's going to be information that can be delivered. I mean, how hard is it to script it out if you already know all the questions and you already know all the answers? I don't know. The last administration, the liberal press got way more than they ever wanted to hear. Way more than they bargained for with Kayleigh. She would give them stuff to talk about, and then it would be media about how she totally dissed the media, right? It was articles and news about the media. They used to get a show every night for free, and now they get this, and they're getting charged to be there. I don't know. I think we see the temperamental disaster of having a press secretary trying to defend herself in the things that she's ill prepared to answer and not really given an opportunity to have access to her boss. Because you got to believe they're keeping people away from him, right? Because nobody wants to really know how bad he is. But in her own way, Jen is responsible for the job that she has. And she's responsible for being more informed, more prepared, more ambitious about getting the job done. So Jen has earned a coveted place here on Clown World Network. Jen Psaki, you are our coveted Clown of the Day. I ever wonder if anybody that we do the Clown of the Day actually sees themselves and sees how we deal with them. Well, yesterday we were reporting about hospitals in Tucson, Arizona being overwhelmed by migrant or illegal COVID patients that are really taking up all the bed spaces. The COVID wards down in Tucson have been fairly quiet up until recently. Now they're at near capacity with many people who can not speak English. Whether or not that means they're illegal or not, we can only assume. But the director of the homeless shelter where Border Patrol agents are releasing the illegal immigrants is stating that about 25% of the migrants that are being dropped off at a Texas border town have tested positive from coronavirus. Shelter director Bill Reagan told a recent Harlingen City Commission meeting that there is not much that can be done, explaining that we can't even quarantine them. Even though they test positive, they're going to leave the next day. They're going to get on the bus or the airplane and they're gone. Now I want you to think about that. We had a lockdown for a year that shut down businesses to quarantine, to get the COVID disease under control, right? We put businesses out of business. We took our kids out of school. We drove up suicide rates. We drove up unemployment rates. We've burdened ourselves with so much tax debt that it's going to take 30 plus generations to pay it all off, just because of COVID. But now we've got these migrants that are being dropped off and being COVID positive with no plan on how to quarantine them. So they want to put these restrictions on American citizens. American citizens. You, me, my business, your business, the mom and pop shops down the road, while allowing big corporate to do business and drive up unrealistic profits. Now they want to drop these migrants into our communities without treatment, without quarantine. Now explain to me how that even makes freaking sense. Explain to me how that even fathoms the thought of social responsibility. We just spent a year this month under house arrest, being told where we can go, what we can do, where we can eat, how we can get our haircuts, how we can own our businesses, where we can shop. Think about what's been done. The government became our probation officers, and we were all given house arrest. You can go to work because you're essential. You can't. You can open because you're big business and you're essential. Small business can't. But we're dropping COVID positive migrant workers, people into buses, planes, trains, and automobiles, and we're sending them out into the world, into the United States of America, to infect Americans and drive the rates up. I don't even understand it. The migrant surge, as well as the difficulties in dealing with it, especially in the coronavirus, is occurring in other border communities across the whole southern United States. Arizona reported it. Texas reported it. This is back-to-back reporting, guys. And these states are not next to each other. They're farther away, which means that it's happening in California, New Mexico. It's happening everywhere where that border borders it, and we're getting these rush of illegal immigrants coming across. The real question is, and the one thing I always want to know is, are you woke yet? Literally. Have you really woke up to see what's happening in the world? Check your eye exam. That's your eye test. Are you woke yet? Are you paying attention to what's going on out there? Are you paying attention to the fact that they're restricting movements of Americans while allowing migrants to just be released? All of this has changed so dramatically in the last 50 days since Joe Biden has taken office. With the simple swipe of a pen, he undid so many of Trump's policies that actually were to secure and make safe American citizens. And now we're supposed to just accept it. We're supposed to accept the fact that we've gone through a year of suffering. And if you don't believe we're suffering, go ask these kids that have been unable to play sports or be involved with school activities or even be at school. Go find out what's really going on in your communities. If you don't know and you honestly think everything's fine and that this has been like the best thing that could have happened, you're wrong. You're uneducated, and flat out, you're pretty stupid. I'll be honest with you. I'm an anti-maxer. I'm an anti-vaxxer. The only time I wear a mask is if I'm absolutely forced to, like on a plane. But I just don't believe that what they're enforcing on people is real. The CDC can't get a handle on what the true science is, but yet they keep saying that we have to trust the science. Well, if they don't know what the science is, what are we trusting? We're trusting politicians. Politicians who make a career out of screwing people. Right? This is reality, guys. If we can't listen to the border towns, if we can't listen to the people who are trying to protect our borders and understand the dangerous policies that are in place right now, the dangerous things are starting to occur, where do you think the next round of money is going to come from when we have to take care of people because they're sick, ill, or dying because they can't receive proper medical treatment because they weren't treated when they were supposed to? And now we got our rates going down. Everybody's touting how great the vaccine is. But what happens when they start spiking our rates? Who pays for that? We do. We do. It's crazy. Are you woke yet? It's time to get woke, people. And it's time to get woke on the real thing. That's my eye test for the day. If you can read that, then you've got 20/20 vision. Are you woke yet? I'm going to keep asking this question. I say this every night. We really have to start making a change. I keep touting the Make America Great policy. Make America Great is not a policy that we have to attribute to Donald Trump. It's a policy we have to attribute to Americans, American citizens, you and me, my neighbor, my friends, my family. That's what a Make America Great is. That's who is involved in it. We're not, individually, we're just people, right? But collectively, we're a whole society. Collectively, we're a powerhouse. We've seen it. We need to stand collectively. We need to stand united. And we need to stand for the understanding that we love America and we want America to be successful and succeed and continue to succeed for many, many, many years to come so that our children, our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren can enjoy everything that we've come to enjoy in our country as well. We're in a dangerous time and a dangerous place in America, and we have to have our voice heard. That's what this is about. That's what this Clown World Network has become. That was my way of having my voice heard. And if it's only a few people, I'm okay with that. If I reach one person, I'm okay with that. The reality is, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to be silenced. And poor Jacob Chansley is sitting in jail and can't get released on bail because they're trying to keep him silent. There's a lot going on in this world, and you can't be happy with the direction that we're going. You can't believe that when we ask to deny someone bail for them possibly exercising their First Amendment right, that we're headed in a good direction, and that we're sitting back as a society and just being like, yeah, he got denied bail because, they didn't want him to talk. Really? Man, come on, people. Let's all wake up. Let's start talking. Let's start having that communication. Let's start meeting our neighbors. Let's start becoming better versions of ourselves so that we can be a better version of the country we believe we can be. We need to make America great, and we need to keep it that way. On that note, thank you all for joining me this afternoon. I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow while I'm in Texas and going in our remote show. We're going to continue to work some new elements in. But as always, be good to each other. Know that I love you, and I'll talk to you again real soon. And remember, it's a clown world out there.